experienced so far that was not made up of people from among us. If we are going to elect a governor or a president or something, we don't go to another country to find them. We don't go outside humanity to find them. So government is made up of people like us. It is just that they have identified maybe politics as their own interest, and for some reason they want to be in governance. So the first thing I say about government is I could be in government. In fact, there was a time that I was High Commissioner somewhere. That's part of government. So it is possible for me to be in government, even if I choose not to be. So when we talk about government, we're actually talking about people who right now are doing that particular activity, holding that particular responsibility. You know, a few years ago I was taking part in a discussion, and seated in the front row of the people listening to this were people who used to be ministers, people who used to be commissioners, people who used to be this and so on. But they had stopped being that. They were now, normal people, ordinary people like me. One of the things I said was, look at this front row. Look at this front row. This front row is providing us with proof, evidence that there's a life after government. That being in government is not supposed to be your lifelong occupation. And so, for me, when I'm asked to look at what government is doing, I say to myself, if you have been in government, particularly in one position, 5 years, 10 years, what are you still doing there? Because, see, every day in this world, some new persons are being born. And they're growing up through the systems we've created. And at some point, they will develop their own interests too and so on. In my view, there ought to be a very discernible limit to the amount of time you can spend in government. Because whatever interest you took into government when you first entered, by the time you've spent 10 years there, and I'm being generous by providing 10, but I've spent 10 years, you'll discover two things. First, that the interest you had at the beginning, what you were aiming at the beginning, has been reshaped, redefined by your experience. And some of the, they talk about people having stars in their eyes. Some of the unrealistic ambitions you had would have been trimmed down by experience. That's the first thing you discover. The second thing you discover is that there are now people who are younger than you who are also generating new ideas. And those new ideas appear to be, attractive, exciting. So, for instance, now, yesterday I was talking to a group of people, and they were all young girls in the room, and I was trying to say, now listen, what classes are you in? And I said, how many of you are in Form 5 now? And they laughed at me. Why did they laugh at me? Because these days you don't talk about Form 5 anymore. You talk about SS2 or SS3. You understand? But I was using the information that I grew up with. So I had to beg them and say, okay, please tell me what is today's equivalent of 5? And you know what happened? Some people said SS2, others said SS3. They can't even agree on. But what I'm saying is that the world is changing all the time. And because the world is changing all the time, ask yourself, what is the lifespan of a good idea? What is the ideal lifespan of a good idea? That is why we have a system that says change your government every 4 years. In some places, it's every 5 years. In some places, it's every 2 years. Whatever it is, there is a limit to how long one set of ideas can actually competently and successfully address the situation. So when we talk about what should government be doing, I say in the context of today, the context of what we know now, the government of today should determine what the priorities are and address those. Because trust me, in 5 years' time, our priorities are going to be different. Because other things will have happened. Priorities will be different. There was a time that we thought, wow, we've just discovered oil. Wow, this is serious, and so on and so forth. What did we do? We discovered oil. I hear sometime in the 50s or 60s. And up till today, we're still using oil as the key for our foreign income. Whereas people who are also in the oil industry have petrochemical industries. They have all kinds of things that they've developed and grown from oil. They've used oil as the instrument for going somewhere else. We have stayed with oil. We export it. We can't even refine it successfully. Huh? So that is why people have to understand that, look, if you were doing something in January of last year, if you had a responsibility and you set up a system for doing it, if you have not looked at that system again, this is now January 2019, if you are still doing it the way you did it last year, look out. Somebody else is catching you up or outstripping you because they're growing new ideas. And that is the reason why people who go into government must know that it's a limited time thing. It's not, look at what we're doing. Just look at what we're doing. Today this person becomes senator. 4 years later he becomes governor. 8 years later he wants to be senator again. What is that? When Americans said it, the place where I was attending, he said, Nigeria is the only place he knows where governors retire into Senate. So you see, so that's my first salvo on government. The second thing I want to say about government is that government is not the one running anything. Government does not run anything. Here we are. We are holding this interview. You are interviewing me. You have thought up your questions. You want to get some information out of me because you have readers or listeners who are going to listen to watch. Where is government in that process? Where is government? But in order to do it, we need power, electric power. need comfortable environment where we can. That is the role of government. To give us those things, to make sure those things are provided that can enable us to do what we can do. So, if your job is running a hotel or whatever it is, you are the one doing what is being done. You are the one making your contribution to this economy. Government is there to provide a situation where you can do that. Again, access to opportunity. So, what is your question about what government should be doing? About what?
Okay, so the question I asked is, how do you think our government could formulate and also implement policies that would make this a reality in Nigeria?
Yeah, okay. So, first of all, we must understand that when somebody decides that he wants to be something, do something, take an occupation, what is his objective? What's his vision? What does he want to achieve? If I say, for instance, that I want to become a priest, why? Why do I want to become a priest? And you know, there are people who become priests because that is a job they want to do. I even know people who become priests because they see the robes that priests wear and they think this looks quite elegant and they want to do the same. But the priest who receives a call into priesthood knows that he is there to minister God's provisions to God's people. You see, immediately, the two important points for him are what God is providing and the people for whom God wants to provide. He is the least important part of that equation. Are you following me?
Yes.
Now, because he is the least important part of that equation, he doesn't therefore see himself as the boss, the proprietor, the owner, the most ignorant. He is the one that understands that God has made provision, but he has made provision for people, and he needs a minister to minister those provisions to his people. So it's the same when you go into government. So when you ask me what should government be doing to make these things happen, the first thing that government ought to realize is that the role of government is to make sure that people can build the kind of society they want to build. The role of government is to make it easier for people to bring whatever they have as a contribution to our situation so that the community can be a wholesome community, a good place to live, a good place to bring up your children, even a good place to die when you have to go. So what should government be doing? Government should be doing whatever we all agree should be in the interest of people. And see what we've done. See what we've done in our government. Whether you're looking at the presidential system or the parliamentary system, what have we done? We've created situations where certain people are elected to represent us. Okay? We can't all go and do it ourselves. So we choose some people to represent us. We actually see they go to the House of Representatives. And they're there to try to collect what we want, what we think should be happening, and to put that on the table and say, this is what people want. This is what is good for people. This is what the people themselves say is good for them. So let's organize the system so that we can deliver what is good for the people. That's why we have elections. And normally elections should give us the opportunity. You notice how many times I'm talking about opportunity. Elections give us the opportunity of saying, look, I have looked at this young man and I've seen that he's able to represent me in putting on the table what I need, what I desire. Anybody who wants to stand for election and be part of government should understand that the role they have elected to play is to be able to make sure that this community can be the best it can be through the efforts of all the people of the community. So that's what should government be doing? Government should be doing whatever is in the interest of people, as determined by the people themselves. That's what we call democracy. Government of the people, by the people, for the people. That's why we define democracy like that. How much do you see the people getting involved in today's government? We're going to go into elections, I'm told, in a few days. And already we're shouting about vote buying and rigging and all kinds of things. That's not in the interest of people. That is not for the people. That is not of the people. So for as long as people in government do not even understand that the people, that's where the bottom line is, we'll always get it wrong. And it goes back to values again. It goes back to values. Because if I choose, it so happens that I have not chosen to be in governance or politics. But if I choose to go into politics and stand for election, I must understand that this is not about me. It is not about me getting into office. It's not about me getting into power. It is about making sure that this country, my community, can be the best it can be. That's it. So whenever we look at politicians and we hail them and we, do all this, it's the way we've distorted the values that we should be practicing.
Okay, sir. So, what do you presently think constitutes Nigerian values? Since to some people, all the values seems to have been eroded.
You see, it's like people will say to you that something has happened, and they used to say that's the Nigerian factor. There's no such thing as Nigerian values. There are human values, which we all practice, whether you live here or in Russia or in Argentina. There are human values, and those human values, in the light of what I've been talking about earlier, simply show that, look, since we are human beings and we're going to be living together, doing things together, achieving objectives together, we make our contribution to that process as we go along. And just as my contribution is important, so is yours. So you must respect mine, I must respect yours. I must not frustrate yours, you must not frustrate mine. Consideration of each other as we go. That is the basis of values. So, I don't know whether that answers your question or not.
Yes, it does. Yeah. So, also would like to know, how do you think our national values have helped impact our national development?
What are our national values? In the Constitution, we actually say that our ethics. The national ethics shall be hard work, honesty, and so on and so forth. And those are national values. National values become identifiable not when they are spoken about, but when they are practiced. Values do not become values. Well, they become values in the abstract. You can talk about them, but they don't become national values unless we are practicing them. So you've got to ask yourself, if you ask me today, what are Nigeria's national values? I find it difficult to identify them. Because, you see, when I was growing up, I was a little boy, there were certain practices that I identified, I could see, even at that time, that these practices are accepted and practiced by everybody. For instance, when I was a little boy, 5-6 years old, I had an uncle. I was living in the village. I had an uncle who had a farm. So he would take me along to the farm. I think more to be sure he was keeping his eye on me than for any contribution I could make on the farm. But he and I would be walking along the footpath to the farm. And as we went along, you would see here a heap of plantains, there some firewood that somebody has brought to the place. Things that people would need. Somebody has brought them out of the bush and put them by the roadside. So you're going in the morning and you see these things. Coming back in the afternoon or the evening, I would discover that those heaps of plantains have either disappeared or gone down. Firewood has been taken away and so on and so on. But there on the ground, you would find a 3-penny piece, some coins, small coins and so on. And much as you might like the money, the practice was that nobody except the owner of the plantains or the owner of the firewood would touch that money. Now that was the practice. And I could identify that there was a value behind that. Respect for other people's space, respect for other people's property. Alright? So that was a practice. So can you identify for me what we do nationally? And we can say that's our national value. Listen, we sing a national anthem. Okay? Sing a national anthem. In the second stanza, we say, O God of creation, direct our noble cause. And we indicate to God what we want Him to direct. Guide our leaders right. Help our youth the truth to know. In love and honesty to grow. And all of us living just and true. Just and true. Our life should be just and true. We now want to build a nation where peace and justice, all those things are the things we think should be our national values. Those are the things we think should be our national values. But as I said, talking about them, singing them, is not like practicing them. So, in fact, I have a quarrel with that circumstance. When it says, guide our leaders right, help our youth the truth to know, is that because we think the leaders already know the truth? Why don't we say, guide our leaders right, help us all the truth to know?
scholarly criticism there?
I'm simply saying that in practice, values have to be practiced. So if today God were to hear that prayer and help all our youth to know the truth, what's going to happen to old people who don't know the truth? We're still part of the nation. So you have to be. So my main point is that values have to be practiced in order to be established as values. And whereas I can identify in small villages around this country, in our indigenous communities, I can identify the values of those communities. I'm finding it difficult to identify national values as things we're practicing now.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much, sir. However, we would like to ask another question.
Sure.
Yeah.
You're here, so.
And it goes thus. Many persons believe Nigerians do not hold one another accountable to values that we all jointly cherished. However, we would like to know how you think this impression could be corrected or changed.
Now, your question is very interesting because you're not speaking from yourself, we're saying many people think or say. So we're talking about the perception of many people.
Yes.
But what is the truth? Because perception will be based on who is perceiving. Opinion is based on who is having the opinion.
It's subjective.
Very subjective. Therefore, I would say for those who say that there's something with the way we hold each other accountable. The best way is to look at those things on which we want to be accountable and spell out how we can be accountable. Spell out how you can hold your parliamentarians or people in the House of Assembly accountable, for example. How can you hold somebody accountable if he calls himself a lawmaker? And if you, in your wisdom, agree to call him or her a lawmaker. Listen, a lawmaker makes laws, right? Yeah. And can change laws. Mm-hmm. So who is he to give account to? No, these people are representatives of other people. Representatives who are participating in the process of setting up a system that all of us cherish. The fact that we've elected them to go there and do it, yes, it's fine. But we've elected them into a responsibility, not into power. If they don't carry out that responsibility, they have failed. So, and the only way you can prove that somebody has carried that responsibility is to let him give account of what he has done with the opportunity. How has he used this opportunity to achieve the objectives that you had in mind when you sent him in that responsibility? And it works whether you're in government, in school, anywhere. You go and offer yourself for a responsibility, you must be ready to be held accountable for what you do. Because when we send these people to House of Assembly, House of Representatives and so on, we give them, apart from what we pay them for their time, we give them the conditions to work in, we give them good seats there so they can sit and talk together, we give them all the things that are necessary for them to do this work responsibly. So if we've given them all of this, shouldn't they come back and say, this is what we have done with what you gave us? So to the extent that we are not doing that, those many people that you talked about before are probably right. But we must not simply say many people say this. We must ask ourselves, isn't there something else we can do to make people accountable in the positions of responsibility to which we have elected them? Must they be able to get away with impunity? Because we don't elect anybody into impunity. We elect them into responsibility and accountability. So that's it.
Okay, so this question I'm about to ask you is based on the fact that critics have said that just taking a look at the lopsided appointments and reward system in our country presently is a huge indication of a faulty national value system. Now, as an elder statesman in Nigeria, what would you consider? Would you consider that as enough pointer to deficits in our collective value system?
Again, you're talking about national value system. Now, if let me turn the question around a little. If there is really a national value system, then the foremost practitioner of that system should be the president, right?
Yes.
The foremost practitioners should be the president, his cabinet, and people who are in topmost responsibility offices, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, and yet we're talking about lopsided appointments and unfair this and unfair that. It shows that we do not yet have what we can call national values. Listen to me, we know what the good values are. We say to God in second stanza of the national anthem, O God of creation, direct our noble cause. And that noble cause is to build a nation where peace and justice reign. That's what the noble cause is. But in between, we're wondering who is pursuing this noble cause? Who is the one that is taking responsibility for making sure this noble cause happens? And you know what I've discovered through research and everything else? Noble causes can only be successfully pursued by noble people. It takes noble people to pursue noble causes. And if you check your dictionary, for the meaning of noble, you will discover that one aspect of being noble is to be able to make self-sacrifice. Is to be able to put your own interests in the shade while you pursue the interests of the community. So noble cause must have noble people, and noble people must be willing to sacrifice their own interests so that they can pursue the corporate interest of the nation. Until we do that, I don't see any national values that we can be claiming today. Yeah, that's it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I was trying to reply to a message in the previous.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So this question now would be taking some form of a tilt.
Of what?
Some form of tilt.
Okay.
Yeah.
Carry on. You're in charge, so you can do what you like.
Well, okay. So successive governments in Nigeria produce solid developmental policies and plans every now and then with the hope of achieving them when key developmental issues are not properly in place. Now, how would you think we could actually change this narrative in Nigeria?
I'm struggling to understand your question.
Okay, what I said is successive governments in Nigeria produce solid developmental plans every now and then with the hope of achieving them when key fundamental issues like honesty, meritocracy, hard work, mindfulness are not in place. Now the question is, now that we are trying to achieve those key developmental plans, but it seems not to be working out, what are the methodological framework?
Methodological framework is not what you're looking for.
Okay.
See, the truth is this, that the system we have, the system of government that we're operating here, is not unique to us. There are other places, in fact, we say we copied them from one place or the other. So there are some places where these things are working. But if they don't work here, it is not methodological whatever. It is people. It is people. Listen, when we were a colony, we were struggling to become a sovereign nation, independent nation. There were some Nigerians who took the responsibility to lead us to the point where eventually we secured independence, right?
Yes.
And till today, the principal actors in that dispensation have the respect of the nation. Why? Because it could not have been easy for them. Some of them were sent to prison, some were put in detention because they were struggling for this independence. They sacrificed their own welfare, their own comfort, their own interest, because they were pursuing a national interest. So, we are now, almost 60 years in independence, right? So where are the people who are making the sacrifices today? Where are the ones who are saying, right, just like those people who wanted to see an independent nation, we want to see, define what you want to see, but be quite sure that working for what you want to see is going to involve you in giving up some of the things that you think you are entitled to. Where are the people? So you see, it's, for me, it is not systems and it is not methods, it is people. Because whatever system you set up, it requires people to operate it. And the people who operate it, as we can see, can operate it in a way that it doesn't work the way it should work.
Okay, thank you very much.
I know you wanted me to talk about methodology, but that's really a huge system, huge word for me.
Okay.
It's people. It's people, because people, you see, methodology or method comes from what people decide to do to achieve something. How they decide to do it, it's still the people. The people are the ones you need to look at.
Okay, nice. Okay, so in order to achieve or sort of enhance economic security, Singapore placed huge commitments on the educational standard of the population. Now, contextualizing this question within the Nigerian terrain, what would you sort of propose so that we could achieve this feat in the country?
What is the real reason for Singapore's success? What's the real reason? They had a leader who mobilized people around him to the same scale of values. And they pursued those values conscientiously, faithfully, and consistently. And that was how they were able to build a community, a national community, that now had national values. But it took one leader who was able to mobilize a team around himself. And that team practiced that self-sacrificing way of doing things. And you see, today we tell the story of Lee Kuan Yew in Singapore, we tell the story of this person who has succeeded, and we sometimes only look at what they've achieved. We don't remember what they had to do to get there. To achieve something, on the way, you suffer bruises, you acquire scars, you do all kinds of things. But we must remember that it takes the right kind of effort to get people around you to do. And people are not always easy to take along with you, because people have different thoughts about different things, different ways of looking at issues. You've got to demonstrate to them why this particular method is in our best interest, and why they themselves must be willing to be patient to give this thing a chance to work and see how it works before they start criticizing it.
Okay, so Sambo, is there any question you'd like to ask him?
Yes. Yes. We've been talking mainly on governance, the value of the nation. I want to go to the area of education. Now, in the year 1997, the Christopher Kolade Foundation was founded, and its mission is to deliver programs and improve education and also literacy in the country, promote good leadership, governance, and facilitate the achievement of interfaith harmony and the development of Christian faith. Now, my question is, over the years, how has this been achieved in the students? Have they been able to find balance in terms of academics, leadership, their faith?
Well, I'm not the one going to tell you that. If you want to find that out, go to the people who have benefited from those programs. Because I can claim that the foundation has done certain things, but in fact I refrain from doing that, because the best way to find out what the foundation has achieved is to look at the people that the foundation has worked with in the last 22 years and ask what has been the effect. Only yesterday we were holding a fair for secondary school girls in Lagos who had participated in the program of science, technology, and so on. And they were there. If you had been there, you would be describing what you saw. And when those girls, eventually there was a panel discussion, and one of those girls was asked, "So what do you want to be in future?" You know what she said? She said, "I want to be like the founder of this foundation, set up an NGO that will impact people's lives the way our lives have been impacted." That is the evidence you want, not me. I don't have to tell you what the foundation has done. But you can go around the country and find not only those girls, you can also find priests and clergy of the church who have received training from what the foundation did. You can find, when I was in London as High Commissioner, I went to a meeting, and a doctor, medical doctor, got up to speak, and he said, "The reason I'm here tonight is I heard that Dr. Kolade is going to speak here. His foundation was the one that introduced me to computers when I was in Louth as a medical student. We provided internet accessibility, and he said it. I didn't even know he was in the audience. Now, that is the kind of evidence that I believe in. I can tell you that we've done many things in music, in education, in this and so on, but find the people who have benefited, and if they give testimony that they have derived some benefit, that's the answer.
Thank very much, sir. That was nice. And sir, and like out of curiosity.
Out of curiosity.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I've noticed that.
Don't forget that curiosity killed the cat. But carry on, yes.
Yes, sir. So I've noticed that the foundation, the Christopher Kolade Foundation, is giving a particular attention to the girl child education.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to know why more on the girl child.
Well, because you see, there are many issues that anyone who wants to participate in education, many issues you can work on. And at some point you have to select which ones you're going to deal with, because you can't do everything. And it seemed to the board of the foundation, incidentally I'm not on the board, so that's the business of the board, it seemed to the board of the foundation that one critical area was the education of girls, especially in the area of science, technology, mathematics, and so on. And if you go to secondary schools in even Lagos State, particularly the areas that are not hugely urban or something, you will discover that many of these girls go to school from JS1 to SS3 and they never see a computer. In 21st century world, this is unkind. And this is why the foundation, the board decided, look, at least this is an area where we can identify a gap. Let's try to fill it. They could be doing something else, but this is the one they've chosen to do.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll be taking you back to the...
You mean we haven't finished this interview yet?
No, we'll soon finish it. We'll soon round it off. Yeah, so as a renowned academic, how best...
Say that again?
As a renowned academic.
When did that happen?
Nah, you've been an academic now. The internet does not like concerning this kind of things.
Do you believe it?
I do.
You do?
Yes.
Carry on.
Okay.
Forget renowned academic, just ask your question.
Okay. How best do you think our educational curriculum in Nigeria could be rejigged so as to conform to global best practices and standards?
Look, I've already, if you remember my first analysis of what education is meant to do. If you go and look at the way the Chinese educate their children, it is clear the kind of society they're trying to build. If you go to Brazil even, and some of these other places, you will find that the education is tailored to what they want the people to be doing in future. So, revamping, rejigging, whatever it is we call it, our education system, is to say to ourselves, what is our vision? What is our vision of Nigeria as a global player? What do we want Nigeria to be seen as? Are we going to be a hub for technology? Are we going to be, what do we want to be? And what we want to be, grow our people to do it. Let me remind you that right now, as you and I speak, in most countries of the world, you'll find Nigerians who are doing one thing or the other. When I was in London as High Commissioner, I met a young Nigerian, must have been about 27 or 28. And I asked him, so what are you doing here? And he says, I am the IT advisor to number 10. Now, what's number 10? The Prime Minister's office. This young Nigerian was working as an IT consultant or advisor to the Prime Minister's office. Now tell me something. How did that happen? How did that happen? Number 10, you know that they won't allow you to work for number 10 unless you actually know what you're doing. Huh? And don't forget that to become what he became, he had to compete for it. It was not that his parents bought it for him or he lobbied for it himself. No, he had to be in competition. Now, that is in Nigeria. So we have a lot of able people in our country, in our nation. Opportunity is what we're lacking. If we give opportunity, people can do wonders in this place. You may have remembered somebody who was said to be the greatest computer something in the world. I forget his name now. A chap from the east. Emegwali. That's a Nigerian. And you have to ask yourself, if we're not lacking in talent, we're not lacking in ability, what we're lacking is opportunity. And so the best thing we can do is create opportunity here and let people be able to do what they can. I wonder who's the IT advisor to SUREP.
I see. Yeah, he says he wants to ask you a question.
Why not? He wants to show that he's not just a cameraman.
Yeah, he's the only cameraman that appears in photos.
Yes.
Okay, sir. We all know that the media contributes. We all know that the media contributes a large chunk to the development of every nation, because they are the ones that give out information, and most times we ruminate over the information they give us to take actions. As a veteran broadcaster and as an elder statesman, what do you think?
You keep calling me names that I don't recognize. Just ask your question.
Okay, sir. Now, what do you think we can do differently in the media? Because in Nigeria now, we hear of fake news, hate speeches. With the advent of social media and everything, everybody is now a journalist. What do you think we can do in Nigeria to actually curb the kind of information that goes out? Because information also determines what type of values you have as an individual.
These people who are guilty of putting out fake news or who use social media for communicating negative things, what do they get out of it? What is the reward that they receive when they do that? Yeah, because look, if you're selling something in the marketplace, if nobody is buying it, you will soon stop selling it. So it is because the market tolerates fake news. That is why people bring us fake news. It's because when someone puts something on social media, Facebook or Instagram or whatever it is, and puts some sensational material there, there are people who are lapping it up. There are people who are running after that. Now, we used to be better than that. We used to actually look at what people are achieving rather than what they are saying about themselves. Our values have gone down. Everybody can put something out as news and we all run after it. No. When I was, you say I'm a veteran broadcaster, when I was in broadcasting, you could not just come out and give news like that. You had to have your background and validation and so on. And if you were caught doing something for which you did not have backing, it could be difficult for you because standards are not being maintained. We now tolerate everything. And we ourselves must be to blame because You see, I'm alive today, and there are certain standards that are going on around me. But I know what the right standards should be, right? I know because my education has enabled me to know, my responsibility performance has enabled me to know. So I know these things. But when somebody comes out and offers fake news, what do I do? What do I do? They look at some people who are popular in Nigeria today. Are they popular for the right reasons? Huh? When somebody says that he jumped out of a vehicle because he was going to be slaughtered somewhere, and it becomes the same individual wants to prove that he went to university, so he goes to the House of Reps or Senate dressed in doctoral robes of a university. Is that, what standard is that? And we show him on television. We show him on television, and there are people who are going to look at that on television and think, if this is one of our, lawmakers, as they call themselves, there must be something to it. No, we ourselves are failing as custodians of our own standards, custodians of our own values. If we put people like that where they belong, if the marketplace doesn't tolerate them, they'll stop selling us fake news.
Thank you very much, sir. Okay, so I'm sorry, I have to give you another title now.
Another title?
Yes.
That's all right. Okay. All the ones you've tried to give me are rejected, so no problem.
I'm sure you'll reject this. Okay, as an international academician.
Good gracious. What's that?
Okay. Okay, what are the propositions you would make so as to end this recurrent ASU strike? Because I mean, ASU is on strike again. 10 years ago,
what
they
are
were
they
on strike.
What are they striking about?
Okay, they claim they want to revamp the educational sector.
No, they claim the main reason they're on strike is that they claim that government made certain agreements with them, and government has not carried out those agreements. That's very simple. Has government denied that?
No.
Yeah. So if you send your minister to go and make agreements with somebody, and that person has the right to believe that this person is representing you, and they actually sign an agreement, and then they wait for implementation, nothing happens. You have to ask yourself, was that an agreement or not? And actually, it should never get to the point where they go on strike. Because for me, you go on strike, at the end of it, you've got to come back and talk. Put the thing on the table and say, this is the agreement that we signed. This is what you promised to do. Now, you have failed to do it. And we want to know why. We want to know why you have failed to do it. Because you signed an agreement with us. And if you sign an agreement and you can't fulfill it, why do you think you are qualified to be in the position you occupy? Why? I mean, if in my view, if a minister of government signs an agreement with a trade union, and because of failure to implement, that trade union decides to go on strike, the position of that minister should be under a question mark. Because what he was sent to do, part of his responsibility, has led to this strike. And there are children of innocent people who are in university who should be receiving services of lecturers for which their parents have paid. Huh? And for months on end, they are at home. They can't go to university. Somebody must take responsibility for that. Somebody is accountable for that tragic situation. It's a calamity for a child to go to university for a 4-year course and still be there 6 years later, not because he has failed in his studies, but because the service has not been delivered to him. Somebody who is responsible for making sure that that service is delivered ought to be accountable. That's my view.
And that's a very powerful view, sir, I must say.
Well, powerful or not, it is the view I hold.
Yeah.
Because, listen, everything that we want to achieve in our society, somebody takes responsibility for delivering the outcome. Isn't that so?
Yes.
If we want good roads, somebody is responsible for making sure the roads are constructed. If we want stable power, somebody is responsible for making sure that that happens. When it does not happen, that person should be accountable. That's for me a very simple matter. Yeah. And if there are overpowering reasons why these things don't happen, we should know what those reasons are. They should tell us. They should tell us what those... You know, there was a time, I don't know whether you remember or not, when a minister of government actually said that telephones are not for the poor. That telephones are not meant for the poor. Telephones. In Nigeria, a country that says it's a giant of Africa, this minister actually said that the poor are not entitled to telephones. So the fact that telephone service was not reaching them was natural. They're poor. It's irresponsible, very irresponsible. But it was said, and then at one point, some telephone place in Ikeja blew up. There was an explosion and destroyed some of the equipment, and the people whose telephone lines were affected were told they had to pay money to get that thing repaired. No, we've gone through a lot of impunity in Nigeria, and it's time to stop it. It's time that people who take responsibility should hold themselves accountable, and if they cannot hold themselves accountable, we should hold them accountable. And there should be some specific ways we do that. And if somebody has betrayed his responsibility, there should be consequences.
Okay, yeah. So you've spoken quite extensively on our educational system in Nigeria. So I would like to ask you this: do you think Nigeria's tertiary educational system needs more establishment of universities or proper funding of the existing universities we have currently?
Well, to take that in sequence, even if we have only 2 universities, we should fund them properly. So if we have 100, they should be well funded. And we should only go to more universities when we are sure that what we already have is being well managed. So that's my answer to your question.
Okay. Short and succinct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I'd like to know how we could actually revitalize our engendered value systems in Nigeria.
I thought we had discussed that already.
Did we?
Revitalize?
Yeah.
No, I've told you. All of us are custodians of our values and
Okay.
standards. If we take that seriously, if you and I make up our minds that wherever we have influence, nobody can get away with wrongdoing. Nobody can survive with doing something that is against the interests of the nation. That's the way to do it. That's the way to do it. Look, if we all stand up and sing the national anthem, we all stand up and recite the national pledge. So, what effort do we make to even keep this national pledge, in spite of the fact that we end it by saying, "So help me God"? If people will not do what they believe, what they have said they believe, there's no way forward. Huh? I pledge to Nigeria, my country, to be faithful, loyal, and honest. If you fail to be faithful, loyal, and honest, what else do we want to hear from you? Huh? So, you see, what I'm saying to you, we are talking about revamping, rejigging. The point is that we all know what is right. We all say what is right. But do we do what is right? That's where the answer is.
Yeah, finally, we just want to take.
Finally.
Yeah, finally.
Who is he deceiving this time?
Actually, finally, I want to take on this. What's your message to the youth out there?
No, look, you know what? My message to every Nigerian is that you must see yourself as somebody that has been given the responsibility of custodianship. Custodianship means you met something. You came into the world and you met something. And there were things that you found that were good. Your parents gave you the right values. They told you the right standards. Keep those values. Keep those standards. Don't allow them to crumble in your hands. Don't allow other people to destroy the values you've been given. Don't destroy the values yourself. And whenever you have to do something, remember that everything you do is a contribution to a larger community effort. So if you don't do it to the best of your ability, if you don't do it faithfully, if you don't do it conscientiously, you're failing. And so we say, we pledge to our country to be faithful, loyal, and honest, to serve Nigeria. Now, every young person out there, can you be faithful? Is it possible? Can you be loyal? Can you be honest? If you can, then do it. Do it. Because we already know that that is what will bring us to where we want to go. Faithful, loyal, and to serve our country with all our heart. Come on. We already know what we should do. But why are we not doing it? Because we look at self-interest, we look at temporary advantage, and so on, forgetting that some people built this nation to where it is today. We today have the responsibility of building it for the people who are going to be here later. We're failing in that responsibility now, because even the rhetoric that we're using does not impact our behavior. That's my answer.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, there we are.
Yeah.
Now I have to phone somebody that was expecting me an hour ago.